Hey, what's up guys? So today I want to share with you one system that I have used that has helped me 3x my business while stepping out of the day-to-day grind. Imagine running a business that grows even while you're not there every single minute. Sounds amazing, right? Well, that's exactly what this system has helped me achieve. So let's dive straight into it. To kick things off, let's visualize your business as a 5-spoked wheel. Each spoke represents an essential component: vision, data, process, people, and issues. These 5 areas are what will make or break your business. Now, you might think, I already know this, but here's the twist. The execution system is like the tire on that wheel. Without it, everything else wobbles and you will never get traction. You've got to tighten these 5 spokes, and let me break it down for you now based on my experience. You gotta start with a crystal clear vision, right? So for me, I asked myself, where do I want to be in 10 years? And from there, getting the answer that I have for myself, I worked backwards to a 3-year and a 1-year plan. When I set my sights on a 3x growth, I knew exactly what that looked like in numbers, in people, in the impact that I'm trying to bring to the customers and people that I work with. It's like building a house. You can't just wing it. You need to start planning it with a blueprint from the ground up. And in my case, it wasn't just about more revenue. I wanted more time freedom as well. I wanted a team that is so competent and so passionate and who really wants the best for themselves and the company, who will make sure that the day-to-day runs really well and to ensure that we can consistently grow every quarter. This will then allow me to focus on a higher level, bigger picture stuff. And that's the plan. So it's not as easy as that, and that's why in this video I'm going to run through the steps to make it happen. So I've crafted a vision, which is the first step, right? Crafting that vision that aligns with that. Every decision that I made had to push me closer to this long-term goal. And for me, this was a game changer for me. You have to track the key metrics, and for my business, I developed a scorecard that gave me a pulse on what was happening every single week at the business. Sales, customer satisfaction, even how fast and how well can we observe our customers, how getting a feedback in terms of every lesson that our students sit for, getting a feedback on the slides, the instructors, and the exercises that we gave them. Every single day, we get a pulse on what those numbers are so that we can fix things that happen immediately. So this will help us spot issues before they became major problems that was going to be very difficult to deal with. So here's the tip, right? Keep it simple. My scorecards initially back in the days, I was like, oh, there's so many numbers I have to track, right? But after really looking at it, I really live on the principle that less is more. So keeping it to 5 to 7 numbers, that's where I try to just focus on these 5 key numbers to let me know whether or not we're on track. And if you don't want to use some fancy software, just use Google Sheet for it. We use Google Sheet to track this entire thing in our company, and it's really working wonders now. So after understanding and having and writing down on pen and paper your vision and the metrics that you want to track to help you achieve that vision, the step 3 is understanding how will you achieve those goals, understanding your processes in place. So here's where things start to get real. I needed processes, I needed repeated systems that could run without me. So I started documenting every single thing, right? How we handle sales, how we onboard new clients, how we deliver our service, everything. At first, this felt pretty tedious to me, right? It was a lot of work. It's a full-time job on its own. But over time, it became the way that really allowed me to stop focusing too much time on the business, because imagine every single new staff that I'm on board, every new student I'm on board, I have to train someone to do it step by step, again and again. And what happens if that person leaves? What happens if that person is in a bad mood today? So whether I like it or not, I'm gonna need to have a strong process in place to make sure everyone in the team knows what to do without me telling them and guiding them every step of the way. So these allowed me to really delegate almost every single operational task to my team using these processes, and it really freed me to have the mind space to think of how we can scale and how we can plan in terms of building the next steps of the company. So after understanding those things, next we got to understand who's going to do the work. It's people, right? At the end of the day, who's going to build your metrics, who's going to build your numbers, who's going to build your product, who's going to build your tech, who's going to do your marketing. It's all people. That's why people is pretty much the most important part of this. If all else fails, if you have the people component right, they will figure everything out for you. So just understand the emphasis that I have now on people, right? You can't grow if everything you're doing yourself, right? I learned that the hard way in the first few years of my business. I literally did everything from the start to the end, and literally I had no time. And like, as we get more and more students and more clients, I literally just, like, the quality of delivery that I have really had to go down. And that's why, to really scale a company, to really grow a company, I run a company of like 15 people now. I understand the importance of people. One great talent really is like worth 10 average or poor ones. So find your people and try your best to keep them. So I've learned this the hard way. I had to really figure out how I can get the right people in the right seats. And just as important, I had to make sure that they wanted the role, they understood it, and they had the capacity to do it well, right? GWC, they get it, they want it, and they have the capacity to do it well. So here's an example. We were struggling with our marketing back in the days, and I realized that I had someone in that role who was overwhelmed and they were just not the right fit. So I made a tough call to hire someone new, and someone who was generally just very interested and very excited about marketing. And guess what? Our numbers just skyrocketed less than a quarter after that. So finding the right people and putting them in the right seat and making sure that they have the capacity to do it, that's the most important 3 things you have to look for when finding the right people in the right seat. Next up would be understanding that there is no perfect system. Everything is eventually going to burn down. The very base of life is entropy. Entropy means everything dies eventually. Everything is chaos and mess eventually, right? So there's always going to be issues in businesses, and there is no perfect system. So what we're going to do is we need to be proactive about identifying and solving potential roadblocks before it's too late. What's going to trip you up? You got to be a few steps ahead. You got to understand in the next coming months or coming years, what is one thing, or what are the things that can kill you? What are the things that can affect your business? So maybe it could be cash flow, maybe it's a weak link in your team, maybe it's a super duper strong link in your team who is what I call a key man risk. This one guy is doing like 5 guys role, and if he leaves, your whole company stumbles. I am literally going through that right now. And identifying these things, and don't sleep on it. Just because you're one great guy doesn't mean he's going to be there forever. What are you going to do on the day that he leaves? You got to identify the weak link in your company. It could be poor customer feedback. Identify the issues before they come by. I remember a time where we almost hit a wall due to delays in production, but because we were tracking our scorecard, we saw it brewing early on. So we kind of knew it was going to happen anyway. So we jumped on it, tweaked it, found out like who was responsible for what, and make sure to put in the checks and balances in place to make sure things are going to be able to deliver on time. So after understanding this whole thing, how do we put it all together, right? We got to install the system. We got to make sure execution goes well, because having a good vision, having nice metrics, having a good issue list documentation, having good processes, if we don't execute well, it's still not going to go anywhere. So we need a system that's able to help ensure that everyone's executing. And for me, this came down to 3 things. The first will be the 90-day priorities, which is what the US calls ROCs. In the next 90 days, what is the 3 to 5 metrics that absolutely matters to the company? And everybody needs to have a ROC for themselves, right? For this coming 3 months, what are you going to contribute to the company? Where does the company want to go? What are those numbers, right? It really keeps me and the team really focused and prioritize on the big vision and what we wanted to do. Okay, next thing will be individual numbers, your scorecards. Every team member had their own scorecard metrics to track, whether it was sales, lead generation, production. Everyone knew what they needed to do, what they needed to hit. Next thing will be a weekly level 10 meeting, which I talked about in another video. We check in to understand if are we on track to achieving our ROCs, are we on track to achieving our scorecards, what are the issues that we're facing. These meetings kept everyone accountable and allowed us to fix problems before they got out of hand, right? So that's it. This is one system that really helped me 3x my business while stepping out of it. After implementing all these processes in place, having the vision, having the metrics, having the scorecards, having the ROCs, having the processes, having the issue list in place, having the data to understand what's right and what's wrong, after having this whole flywheel set up, I was able to then step out of it, and it all comes down to having a clear vision, the right data, reliable processes, having the right team, and fixing issues proactively. And trust me, once you nail this, you will be amazed at how much things can move with or without you being in the weeds. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts.